It's not essential that you borrow, all right, and it's not essential that you take finance or you take funding. But my advice, if you do one thing, is that you prepare to borrow over the next couple of weeks, all right, and prepare that in the event that something happens on the 31st of October and you need to engage quickly with your bank or your finance house to access the funding, that you at least have the prep work done over the next while. It will take approximately 15 minutes to do the piece of work you need to do with the SBCI. It'll take you a bit longer with your bank, but you need to get those two things in place, and that gives you time and it gives you the space to actually react if you had to do so quickly. So I want to focus on two things today. One is the Brexit Loan Scheme and one is the Future Growth Loan Scheme. And both of these came about as a result of feedback from SMEs that when we started work about 4 years ago, we put cheap funding into the Irish market at a discount, and that did one thing. It brought down the price of borrowing for SMEs, but it didn't really change the access problems that businesses were having in sourcing finance from their banks and non-banks. So what we've done now is we've placed guarantees in place with the banks where we have taken some of the risk away from them and in turn the risk away from the SME. And typically that guarantee is now an 80% government guarantee. So it does make life easier for the banks to finance assets that they may not have been willing to do so before, but it also makes it more acceptable for an SME to approach their bank and look for that finance. So I want to just quickly focus on, Brexit. I know it's a terrible word and people are just sick of it, but the reality is that it is coming. It's 29 days away at this stage. We need to look and see, are there ways that you can actually help yourself to be ready? The Brexit Loan Scheme, 300 million scheme. To date, about 43 million of that is allocated, so there's plenty of capacity in the scheme in the event that people need to avail of it. Definition of a Brexit impacted company, 15% of your business must be exposed to the UK or Northern Ireland, and that can be a combination of imports, exports, direct or indirect, direct yourself or indirectly through a distributor or a wholesaler who in turn is exposed to the UK. Loans range from 25 grand to 1.5 million at a fixed rate of 4%. It's a 3-year loan, but the key thing on this one is that loans up to €500,000 are unsecured. So there are no personal guarantees and no security required for those loans. They are loans. You still have to prove that you actually do have the repayment capacity and you do need to pay it back, but they are unsecured. All right, so the reality on this one is that we've gotten some feedback from SMEs that a 3-year time frame is pretty short in terms of being able to fund it from cash flow. So we actually looked at another scheme as well, but in advance of that, rather than me tell you about what businesses are using the Brexit Loans Scheme for, I would actually ask just to play a little quick video that might highlight to you businesses that have used our scheme.
When we heard about Brexit, it was a shock to us.
I think a lot of people didn't realise what the impact of it would be.
The application process for the Brexit Loan Scheme was simple.
We filled that in and got a response back that very same day.
We spoke to the SBCI people on Wednesday. We had an application in by the following Monday and we got approval on Tuesday.
The Brexit Loan Scheme has been very helpful to our business.
We used it to pivot, to diversify our markets.
I couldn't be more positive about the scheme. I mean, I thought it was absolutely excellent.
Go and talk to the SBCI or your bank or whoever it is, find out a bit more about it, because in reality this is the best deal in town.
In terms of that longer term scheme where SMEs have said, look, we'd like to actually avail of a scheme that would allow us to pay back our funding over a longer period of time, we have introduced what is called the Future Growth Loan Scheme. It's another 300 million scheme where again we give a guarantee to the banks, and this is for long-term investment and to encourage SMEs to move away from that short-termism around financing assets, and it's designed for those assets that the banks find difficult to finance in their normal term lending, and it's for loans again for 100 grand up to 3 million or 50,000 up to 3 million for agri. And again, we're trying to get people to think about a 10-year loan. Loans, again, up to 500 grand are unsecured. Maximum interest rates for loans up to 250 grand or 4.5, or 3.5 for loans above 250 grand. And we're already seeing that the banks providing the scheme are competing below those rates at this minute in time. So it really means that there is access to long-term funding that's there. It is easier to access, it's easier to get, and it is at a much cheaper rate. So the key difference on this one as well is that we will tell you whether you're eligible or not for the scheme, and you just come onto the SBCI website, you fill in a form, you email it to us, we will in the usual turnaround time is about 24 hours. We will come back to you and confirm whether you're eligible for the scheme or not. You then take that number to your bank and commence the credit application process. It is relatively straightforward. The eligibility piece is simple. The credit decision is a bit harder, right, because you're going through your bank and you've got to prove repayment capacity. But just to give you a sense around what we've done in 4 years, there's over €1 billion of SBCI funding in the Irish market, and more than 26,000 Irish SMEs have availed of SBCI funding. All right, so it's been done quietly. It's been done through the banks and non-banks, but that is the scale of our business, and we are a team of 17 people who work within the Department of Finance. So it's well spread. We'd like to see that 7.4% in the Midlands of usage of our funding being we'd like to see that increase over the next while. So that's why we're at events like this. And then you can follow us again on Twitter, LinkedIn, or YouTube. We have all our case studies up there that you can actually have a look at. And there are my contact details. It's john.madigan@sbci.gov.ie. And we're very happy to engage with you on a one-to-one basis. I'm here today, and Ariana, my colleague, is also here. We're both at the stand outside, and we're very happy to engage with you on a one-to-one basis. And thank you very much for your time.